All right, first I'm going to talk a little bit about the equipment that we use, just so you'll know the terminology. So this right here is a brayer. So we're going to use a brayer to actually get ink on the brayer and roll the ink and spread it around, and then we'll roll the ink onto our linoleum with this brayer. This is the linoleum that I'm going to give you. It's a soft cut linoleum. It feels like rubber, and it's going to be really easy to cut into, okay, when you start carving. This is the block printing ink that we're going to be using. It's made by Speedball, and it's water-based. It will have lots of different colors of this, so you can use any color you want, and you can actually mix new colors. Like if you want a lighter purple, you can just mix a little bit of white with this and come up with a new color. For rolling our ink out on, we're just going to be using this. It's a non-porous surface, and it won't absorb the ink, so we're just going to use the ink, this to roll out the ink. And you'll probably need some knives or putty knives to get the ink out of here and onto there. And then this is the most important part right here. This is the lino cutter, okay? So lino cutter has several parts to it. This is the handle. This tip comes off, and this is what actually holds the blade. So if you unscrew this a little bit, you're actually able to take the blade out and put a different blade in, okay? So blades come in different sizes. This, for example, is a size 5 blade, and it's the largest blade that you can have. Okay, this one right here is a size 1 blade, and you can see it's a much smaller tip right there, and it will carve a very small line. Okay, so I will just put the blade back in so you can see how it's done. So like I said, this part it does screw off altogether if you keep unscrewing it. So I'll show you what that looks like just in case you have that. And these pieces come apart. Okay? So to put it back together, it kind of goes together like a bullet, like that. And you're going to place the bullet with the point down inside here. And then you can screw it back on. So without tightening it all the way, you're going to need to take this curved part that does not have the blade on it. Here's the blade. It is sharp and it will cut you. So to put it in there, you will fit it between. There's a couple of metal parts right there, so it just slides right in there between those metal parts. You can kind of see where the curved part fits into. And you tighten it until it will not tighten anymore. Okay, screw it on really tight. That way, if you give this end a pull, it does not come out. This also comes out so that if you want to store extra blades, you can. Okay, so let's say you take out this blade and put it on a different blade. That's just for storing blades. Okay, let's see. What I'm going to do for my demonstration is I've started drawing something that I'm going to be using and making a bunch of cards for. So it started off as a very simple outline. I put 2015 Indians. I started with the outline of an N and then the outline of the Indian. But I said that you need to have more contrast and values. So one of the easiest ways to add contrast and values is just by coloring in some areas black. So that's what I did with this. Okay. Another easy way to add contrast and value is to do some hatching lines. So I'm actually going to create sort of a gray area or texture, and I'm going to be carving some lines that are sort of dashed lines into this area right here. So I'll go ahead and draw that up just so you can see what it looks like. So that'll end up looking sort of like a gray area. And then I've got these letters right here. And I've made them a little bit thicker too, just because I want them to be nice and thick. If anything is too thin, it might break off. Okay, so make sure that the areas of linoleum that you're actually going to leave are thick enough to be able to survive. Okay? All right, I'm going to put a few dots on the corner as well, just for kind of a border and decoration. When you get done with the drawing, and once it's approved and like that looks good, background is taken care of, you got lots of value, what you're going to do is I'm going to give you a piece of linoleum. It's got some white stuff on it, so just clean that off. I'm going to use this as the back side because it's kind of uneven. I'm going to write your name on the back so we'll know it's yours. I'm going to put your block number on there as well. And to transfer it, it's very easy. I showed you this last time. All you're going to do is take your drawing, your original drawing, just lay it face down, And while holding it still,
if you color on the back of it, the graphite from the paper on the front side should transfer to the linoleum. So it doesn't have to be neat. Just make sure you hold it still so that the design doesn't move on you.
okay, then lift it up, and you can see your design is transferred. All right, I did talk a little bit about letters and numbers. So if you're doing any letters or numbers, they do need to be backward on the linoleum block. So you can see right here that 2015 is backwards on here, because if it's backwards on here, when you print it on the paper, it will be forwards. So it's forward on my original drawing. I transferred it. Now it's backward on the linoleum. When I print it again, it'll be forward again. Okay? All right, I showed you how to insert the blade in the lino cutter. I'm going to show you just real quick the different sizes and what they can do. So for easier visibility, I'm going to just mark this up so you can see what I'm carving away. This is just the back side of my linoleum, just so I can show you some different sizes. All right, let's start with the size 1 blade, which is the smallest. If you use the size 1 blade, it will remove a very thin line, okay? So this is really great for detailed work. Hopefully you guys can see that thin line. Let's move on up to the number 3, which is a little bit thicker. That will remove a thicker line, and removing more at a time, and they're wider, okay? And then now, all the way up to the number 5 blade, which is the largest. So if you're really wanting to remove a lot of linoleum all at once, this will do the job, okay? So, this is size 1 blade. Oop, that's kind of loose. Size 3 blade and size 5 blade. Okay, how to hold the lino cutter. I'm actually going to start carving on this one. And I have decided, I smudged it a little bit. Okay, so this area is going to be black, and if I am using black ink and I want this area that I colored in black to be black, then that's the part that I have to leave. Okay, I'm going to leave it there, and I'm going to carve everything else around it. If I want this line to be black, I have to leave that, and I have to carve everything else around it. Okay, so the areas that you are carving away are the areas that are going to be white. When you're carving, this is how you hold the blade. You're going to put your thumb on the side here, and you're going to put your pointer finger right here on the metal part that screws in, okay? So you hold it just like this. And you just kind of wrap your other fingers around it. So the blade should look like a U, and the blade always goes away from you, and you never ever want to put your hand in front of the blade, because if it slips or catches on the linoleum, you're going to put a U-shaped gouge in your finger, okay? So you always have your hand behind the blade. Okay, so you're pushing the blade away from you, and you're removing some linoleum. And first what I'm going to do is just outline this in, okay? So now instead of going like this for this side of the end, I'm just going to turn my linoleum so that I can still hold it with my hand behind the blade, and I'm still pushing the blade away from me. And just keep turning it so that you're always avoiding putting your hand in the way of danger. Now, once you remove linoleum, you really can't put it back. So try to go slow and not make mistakes, if that's at all possible. If you do make a mistake, then you're just going to have to turn it into something else. And just try to problem solve and just go with it. So it's a good idea to kind of outline all the white areas first. And if I know that I want this whole area to be white and not print, then I might as well just use the number 5 size and just go ahead and remove it all. You don't need to cut too deep. You can always remove more. So let's say I think I'm removing enough here, and then I go to print it, and I'm like, well, you can still see that. I guess I didn't remove enough. You can always remove more, but you can't put linoleum back on. Okay? So, next thing on the list Again, this is like an X-Acto blade, okay? So it's not flat, it's rounded, but it is pretty much just like an X-Acto blade, okay? All right. Now with this one, I'm going to show you how to print, okay? So this one's not done carving, but I do have a finished one that I used last semester. So you can see that I've carved away this area, and this is a texture. This is sort of a stippling texture that I've created. So real quick, I'll show you how to do those. If you want to do some textured lines, you'll just do some short little strokes like that. Okay, and that can make a nice texture. And if you want to do some stippling, like this right here, these are kind of little dots. So I did that by just taking the tool and kind of turning and flicking, okay? So it's a little turn and flick. And if it doesn't come off, you can kind of peel it. But it's just a little turn and flick, and that's how you get little dot textures. So some of you have sort of a sandy texture, or maybe for grass or tree bark or something, okay? And you can use a smaller blade if you want those dots to be smaller. All right, so let's get some ink right here. Okay, I'm going to take a little bit of purple ink, and you really don't need much. This is about a nickel size. All right, and with my brayer, I'm going to take that nickel size amount, and I'm really not even going to use all of it. I'm just getting a little bit of it on my brayer, and I'm going to use this to spread it around. It has to be spread around. So see how there's no purple on this part of the brayer right now? You have to just keep picking it up and rolling it until it's all covered. So go this way, go that way. You can't just do this because that's not really getting it all spread around. You got to pick it up, okay? All right. And once you think you have your ink all spread out, you're going to roll it on here. You should be able to see it. And when you roll this, it kind of sounds like Velcro, so that's a good sound. If it sounds too globby, then it probably is. Rolling it this way and that way until it looks like it's all covered. Okay? Clear my table area here. Oops, I got a little scrap there. So let me redo that area. Okay, you can print on whatever color paper you want. But since I've got purple ink, I'm going to use yellow paper. All right, now I'm going to lay the paper face down on here. You just have to try to center it. Now you can either burnish it with your hand. So burnishing means just kind of pushing and rubbing and getting all that ink transferred off onto the paper. Or you can use a dry brayer. This has no ink on it, so I can pretty easily use this and really roll it on there this way and that way. A spoon works too, but I find if you get just the right amount of ink, your hands will work to really push all that ink off there. Okay, when you're done, you're going to peel it off. And if somehow you're like, it doesn't look dark enough, you can always put it back down if you haven't peeled it off and try to get more ink because it doesn't look quite as bright as I want it. So you can always try a little bit harder. All right, now we're going to peel it off. And that's an okay print, but the next one I do, I think I'm going to try to get a little bit more ink on there, okay? That's all right. I think I'd like to get a little more ink on there. All right, this is how you're going to sign it. You're going to title it. Oops, try not to get your fingerprints on there. I've got a little bit of ink on my finger, and I got a fingerprint right there. Okay, so this would be a print that I would probably not keep and not turn in. But I can title it. This is how you sign them. Here's my title. Here's the signature of the author. That's my signature. And this is an edition number. So this is the first one that I printed. And if I'm going to print 5 of these total, then I'll put a 5 here. So this means that this is the first one, the first print that I did out of a series of 5 total. If you're going to print 20 total, then this would be a 20. Okay? So now this means I have to print 5 of them. And the second one would be 2 out of 5. And the third one that I print will be 3 out of 5. If they don't turn out well, then don't count them at all. Okay? Before you switch colors, like let's say I want to do a blue print now instead of purple ink, you always have to wash this off in the sink, and then you'll use a new brayer. So don't use the purple brayer, just use a new brayer. If you want to switch colors with the brayer, you're going to have to wash that off as well. Okay, real quick, I'm going to show you how to ombre, and then I'll let you guys take the test. Do me a favor and wash that off. Bam. Oops, sorry, almost got you, didn't I? But did wash it. Okay. All right, I'm going to get a little bit of blue ink here. Okay, so now, this is really a messy work surface. This is not a good example. Okay, I'm going to take a little bit of my blue ink. The blue ink is a little bit moister. The purple just seems kind of dried out. So I've got some blue ink ready to go on my brayer. Get a little bit more purple ink on my brayer because the stuff that I already had on there is kind of dried out now. Nothing globby, thank you. Okay, so if you want to ombre, what I'm going to do is take the purple ink and I'm going to put the purple on the top of it. About halfway. And now I'm going to take the blue and I'm going to put blue on the bottom of it. And I'm going to try to blend those together a little bit. So I've got blue, go over it with the purple again. And I'm going to try to blend those. So I think it's pretty good so far. All right, that looks pretty good. So you can see it on here. And I'm going to print on book paper this time. I do like using old book pages. I don't know if you do, but if you do, that's a thing. You can do that. Be sure to burnish. Really get all the edges and all the corners pushed down to get that ink transferred. Okay, so the blue one turned out better. I think the whole print altogether turned out better than the last one. Do you have a second one? No, hold on. So if this were the second one that I was going to keep, this would be 2 out of 5. So I've numbered it. Okay? I think that's it. All the safety.